Hey, welcome to the Graveyard Shift. The purpose of this podcast is to provide you with some ideas and inspiration on improving your funeral home's operations and helping you connect with more families. And this podcast is brought to you by Passari. So my name is Todd Carlson. I'm the Chief Sales Officer with Directors Investment Group, the family of companies which include Passari, Funeral Directors Life, and Claim Check. And hey, it's great to have our normal cast of characters back with us today. And again, with us, we've got Matt Bailey here from Bailey Family Funeral Homes in Connecticut. Jimmy Lucas here from all the way from Fort Worth, Texas, virtually. And his digital mode of transportation is the digital horse, right, Jimmy?
Yes,
so
giddy up.
Thanks for riding today. And also, we've got Gary Freitag with us with Spring Grove Funeral Homes and Cemeteries in Cincinnati, Ohio. So, guys, great to have you back.
Thank you. Matt took a little too much melatonin.
Hey, to our listeners, just a reminder: we love to hear your feedback. As you're listening today, please shoot us an email with your thoughts, your feedback, your advice. We need that, Lord knows. Your criticism. In the rare case that we make sense, you can even shoot us a compliment. And send those over to thegraveyardshift@passari.com. And by the way, if you have any complaints today, Jimmy Lucas once again is managing our complaints for us.
Yep. Control-Alt-Delete, people.
All right. Hey, we've got a special guest today. We're really excited to have this fine gentleman on the program with us today. His name's Tom Antram at French Funerals and Cremations here over in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So, Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Todd. And what a auspicious or maybe suspicious group that I am part of today. Thank you for having me. As Todd said, I'm Tom Antram with French Funerals in Albuquerque. Our business is 118 years old here in Albuquerque, family owned and operated, although I am not part of the original family. So I took over ownership beginning in 2010 and finalized it in 22. Have been with French for 32 years and have had a chance to be in funeral service doing everything under the sun, with the exception of operating backhoes. I mean, here we are talking about the graveyard, and I've never had a chance to operate a backhoe. I think there's something suspicious about that whole activity. They won't let me touch it, Todd.
Oh, well, Tom, I've seen you drive. So,
That's how you were able to move up. They kept you off the backhoe.
Yeah, exactly. Swing that backhoe into the neighboring monument and knock it over. They're probably trying to hold your costs down a little bit, Tom.
Liability, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Tom, for joining us. One thing that we kind of discussed here, Tom, is just the idea that it really, in today's world, just never really been harder than it is right now to own a funeral home, to be a funeral director, and to serve families. Things aren't the same as they were maybe 15, 20, 30 years ago, right? And, so to really hoping today will give our listeners a little bit of some tools and some things that they can think about while they're trying to improve themselves as a funeral professional or their businesses. So we're going to talk today a little bit about technology. So, Tom, I know that's something at your organization that you are an embracer of technology. So I wanted to start with this perspective first, and we'll get the feedback from the group here too. We'll start with you, Tom, where do you think families are at? Because I think a lot of funeral directors, when they think about technology, they wonder if, our family's really going to embrace it. What's been your experience and where families are at with interacting with your business and your people using technology?
I think families overall expect more than we currently offer. Being candid in funeral service as a generic statement. We all engage online every single day. And families are no different. They're making choices online. They're making selections through that process. And while funeral service has caught up a lot over the last decade, we're still behind in that, in my view. I think we have a way to go, but I think we're also making some headway, specifically with Passari and what we're trying to do through that platform. That's grown a lot over the last 10 years. So, I think families want to engage the way that they engage in every other light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. So anyone else have anything they'd like to add to what Tom said?
I'll throw a comment in there. I couldn't agree more with Tom. I think we've made some progress as a profession, but we're still nowhere near where the rest of the world is. And I know this we are staffed, this profession is staffed with people that it's all based on face-to-face interaction, but you got to be able to leverage the tools to maximize that in close thing. And the other thing I tell you is, I think the reason it's accelerating is there's been a lot of consolidation in the profession. If you're talking about a family-owned business that's doing 100 calls, and we have a bunch of them in our region, they don't have the scale or the resources to be able to invest in the kinds of technology that our families really would like to have if they could have it, or a significant portion of them, right? We still have people that love working on paper and all that stuff. But I think the scale will help us over time because, once you get to 500 or 800 or whatever calls it is, you've now got the resources to be able to invest in the technology to try to leverage some of that. So I think that's in part why it's accelerating.
Mm-hmm. Good.
I agree with that, but I'll also piggyback that with that you're moving away from, for the most part, family ownership, not completely, but you have, besides Matt Bailey, these younger people coming into funeral service are very technology savvy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's pulling us that older generation into it, whether we want to or not. And look at who we're hiring and who we're bringing on staff is, our new coworkers and colleagues. They've grown up with some type of device, and what may take me a minute to figure out which microphone I'm using or camera I'm using, it's just intuitive to them.
Yeah. So Matt, have you been called the younger generation on this podcast now? So,
Yeah, young whippersnapper.
It's the skincare product that he uses.
Velvetone. some strange.
And there we go. Left turn.
Give me a bottle. I took a left turn in Albuquerque, like Bugs Bunny. Yeah. No. Yesterday's my birthday, so I don't know if I am officially young or not still.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Well, happy birthday!
I didn't even call you yesterday. I'm sorry.
That's why I'm fond to work into this conversation today to point out your lack of thoughtfulness.
Yeah, no wonder you're so pissed off right now. I get it.
Todd took me out to dinner. You didn't even call.
Yeah, I did. I took him out to dinner on Wednesday night. A lot of you don't know that. So, yeah.
Oh, good for you. What did you send him? DoorDash? What'd you do?
Yeah, I showed up in person. I just got back at 10 o'clock last night. It's not easy to get from Abilene, Texas to New Haven, Connecticut. Anywhere. True, Gary.
Very few direct flights. What were we talking about? No.
Your birthday.
Technology, your perspective, Matt, as the youthful one on the program.
Well, I think when you talk about some of the generational things too that Jimmy brought up, some of that is accurate. Like most things he says, some is accurate. But I think we also get a lot of stereotypes in that. I mean, I know 89-year-olds who are on their computer all day, every day, and they expect and want electronic copies or emails or things like that, and they're very much embraced in it. And we brought up in, I think, previous episodes, perhaps younger generations where some are not as great into technology as we expect them to be, but we're also seeing them change in ways. We've talked about soft skills and interaction, and good luck getting someone under a certain age even to answer the phone. So, I think part of the challenge for us is going to be getting those different generations to learn how to work and talk and communicate with each other. So if you have a 25-year-old new licensee who responds with a text every time you call them, they're going to have to learn. You're going to have to pick up the telephone and make the phone call to an 81-year-old widower to ask him when we're going to get his wife's dress. He's not going to respond to a text message, and they're going to have to deal with that. At the same way, one of our directors who may not like technology and likes to sit down and do a paper statement of goods and services is going to have to be able to, from home, put an estimate together on their computer and email it to someone, even though they like to write things down. So, as much as I think we have all these conversations about the role of technology and what we think and what we like and what we want, and the reality is it's driven by the customer and it's driven by the consumer. And they're going to expect us to interact with them in a way that they're most comfortable with. So if that means I want to send you a link to our online planning center and you could get started on some stuff, and they delve into it and they love it, we have to be able to offer that to them and give it to them. If they say, I don't want to do that, I'm going to see you tomorrow, why do I have to? That is totally fine. There's a resource for you or for your family if they want to, and we'll see you in the morning. So I think the customer is the one that gets to drive this, and they're going to work with the people that work with them the way they want to. And we just have to be prepared to do it in all the different ways.
Yeah, exactly. Good point, Matt. Hey,
Meet them where they want to be met.
Yeah, that's a good point. And really, that's an empathetic approach, right? I mean, it's a customer first empathetic approach, and that's what I think funeral service should excel at. So, Tom, tell us a little bit about the various technologies and various maybe even subsystems of technologies. Kind of how do you use technology kind of on a daily basis at French Funerals and Cremations?
Yeah, so we've been kind of an early adopter in a lot of different aspects around technology, and so kind of going backwards, we tried to put in our first planning system back in 2002, and we started with, how can we build it ourselves, right? We all have friends who tried to build a system themselves with their local folks. We tried that valiantly for about a year and a half, and we never got very far. And finally, we tossed it up and threw it to the side, and we went to a platform back then called Teleris. Do you guys remember that one?
No, I don't remember that one.
It was short-lived. We used it for about 2 years before we went to another platform. And so what I'm getting at is we were out trying to find something that could do exactly what Matt just talked about, is connecting with families the way they wanted to connect. And so that growth has happened a lot over the years. You guys on this call know we were on the bloody end of the spear with Passari. Mm-hmm. We were funeral home number one to start using it. And we learned a lot, both with Passari and with our families, on what was the right way to serve. So I think we ultimately have gotten really good on that side. Other technologies that we use, of course, we're web streaming like all other funeral homes that are out there. We have an app now that we're scheduling our associate staff with, so that we can connect out with them. Again, back to what Matt just said, our employees are in different veins, just like our families are. And we have to connect with them the way that they want to. So you have to figure out what works for you. I wouldn't say that we have it all figured out at all, but we're willing to try it and continue to find resources that really smooth out the use of technology with service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thanks, Tom. And what you break down, you look at the various aspects of Passari. Let's say we talked to Matt alluded and Tommy too, the planning center, that tool that helps the family do their work prior to a funeral arrangement. That's one aspect, and then you've got some other, and you mentioned being on the bloody tip of the spear. I know your firm was very involved in betaing and helping us test the mobile app too. So, where are you at with, let's say some of the other aspects like decedent tracking or, on a remote signatures, some of those kinds of things, and talk about how you maybe looked at those things 8 or 10 years ago and how you're using them now.
So shamefully, 8 or 10 years ago, we were very archaic in our decedent tracking. Like a lot of funeral homes, we did it the same way we had done it for millennia, right? And until something horrible happened for us in our firm, where we made a mistake. And that was a slap in the face. And the decedent tracking through Passari was relatively new at that point, but we immediately went all in. And I would tell you that our staff had more concerns about how we did decedent tracking with a family present. At that time, there was a lot of apprehension, but we got right over that very quickly, because families, going back to technology, they use this every day. And when they see that you're scanning and you're inventorying their loved ones' materials right then and there, there's a sense of comfort that comes for a family immediately. And we have had zero complaint through that process. We use it militantly now. Every decedent is tracked from the moment we pick up, whether that's at a family home or a hospice or a hospital, and every move along the way. And that could include going to our care center, going to another location, coming back to the care center, going to the crematory. We're tracking everything along the way. And I think it gives comfort not only for the family, but for me as a business owner, it gives me great comfort to be able to log in and know that we know exactly where that loved one is every step of the way. It's huge to me. It's a non-negotiable. We have to get there as a profession.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyone have anything to add?
I love decedent tracking. That was the hook really that got me into Passari, visiting with Josh McQueen. And then he allowed me to be a part of that process as the decedent tracking started. We started it at our crematory specifically and got that figured out, and then went backwards into all the way back to the initial first call. We've been doing it for 5+ years now on every family, every time, every process, just like how Tom does it. Tom and I've had a lot of, I'm glad you're on, by the way, Tom. I have utmost respect for Tom Antram. And so I'll call him when I have a weird question about something, and he's gracious enough to take my phone call, especially as it relates to the operation side of Passari and or decedent tracking.
Questions you must call with your weird questions.
I know you got okay. I call all of you all the time because I'm always lost. But I love the decedent tracking piece of Passari, and it's come a long way. And the other piece, you guys are going to laugh at me, but when COVID hit, and we all were scrambling for how do we get these electronic signatures to these families, we went to PandaDocs at first, and then we are just now switching over to our contract, or to the Passari electronic signature. So we're like super excited that we're not going to have to stroke another check from PandaDocs. And those e-signatures come in and they stay right inside Passari in that folder where we want it to be anyway. So we're excited about that happening. And I know we're way behind on you guys. Are you guys doing the electronic signature through Passari right now?
We are. We actually, our state did not allow us to use anything but a wet signature until COVID. So we couldn't even fax or email. If we had a cremation permit, we'd have to either mail a blank one, have the family sign it, and FedEx it to us. So for years, we weren't able to do it. I did the first COVID death transfer in our state. And I was literally driving to the hospital, calling our state inspector on the phone. And I had given him a heads up before it happened. And his proposal to me at the time was I could take the paperwork, because the family, mind you, was under quarantine as well, because they had been exposed to their dad who had died. His proposal at the time was take the paperwork, put it in an envelope, drive to the family's house, get out of your vehicle, tape the envelope to the outside of their storm door, go back to your car, call the family from your cell phone, tell them you just taped it there, have them come out, take it off, sign it, put it back in the envelope, tape it on the outside, then go get it. Now, meanwhile, we're watching how to wash your groceries, and we don't know if the virus is clinging on to apples or paper or anything else. And I said to him, like,
only bananas.
And in our part of the country where you saw the news stories where people were waiting 3-4 days to get a transfer to take place, just to have people to be able to do those transfers, he wanted us to take the time to start doing that for every one of those cases as well. Obviously, it did not work. So we had an executive order, and electronic signatures was born from that. But it was a game changer for us. And frankly, families like it. I mean, I had a woman just yesterday I was talking to on the phone. She lived an hour and a half away. And it was a simple service. It was a pre-need fulfillment. She had to sign one document, and within 45 seconds, it's done. And like Jimmy said, the Passari thing was great for us because what we were paying for DocuSign and paying for every seat for someone to have that. I mean, it was crazy how much that costs. And then you have some people trying to, one will do PandaDoc, one will do DocuSign. They'll try to get their free trials going, or they'll download something, or they get 2 signatures a month. And it's not how you operate an efficient operation. So for us having it all built in, it made sense.
But I did it for 6 months before they caught me.
Jimmy Lucas.
I thought Jimmy was going to show us his Passari barcode, that he's being a proactive thinker, that he puts it on ahead of time.
His wife Jennifer.
It's on my foot down here. I got it on my ankle, where you're appropriately supposed to attach your ID band.
His wife
Yes.
Jennifer was able to log into the Passari app and know where he is at any given moment because his staff
Yeah.
scans his ankle bracelet. Right leg and an ankle bracelet on the left leg. One is from Passari, the other is from the state of Texas.
By God.
Exactly. So,
Before you move on,
yes, Tom.
I'm sorry, Todd, but before we move on a little bit, I wanted to pick up on something Matt said. With the transitions, especially during COVID, we saw a lot of learning that occurred across our profession and had to, right? We were pivoting and figuring out how to do things very differently. But the beauty of what we started to learn then and what is continuing now with a lot of the softwares that we all use is the simplification of the connection with the family. Instead of having to have Adobe Sign, instead of having to have another platform out on the other side for pre-need and at-need, we can move things together concurrently. And I think that's a huge blessing, not only to us and our profession, but for the families we serve.
Good point.
Amen to that.
I wanted to actually take a step backwards because I wanted to go back to that. I think for many funeral directors, technology can be a little bit intimidating because they get very fearful or anxious about the family's reaction. All right. So Tom, you mentioned something about, when you pull out that band and place it on their loved one, families aren't appalled by that. They're not upset about it. They're not even concerned about it. Now I'm going to take you can tell me if I'm on something or onto something here. All right.
You are.
I would argue that they might even increase in their trust in your business because of the way you're being proactive about the level of caring that you're showing that family by saying we care enough that we're going to track your loved one. And you wouldn't say that, right? But that you're going to make sure that they see that tangible sign of caring and the amount of caring and detail that you're going to put into taking care of their loved one, bringing them into your care, and making sure that during the whole process of their time that you're in your care, that they're in trusting and stable hands. So that's my take. I just wanted your reaction on that comment.
100%. And we have a wonderful transfer team that goes out to bring decedents into our care, and they're much more gifted than I am about giving values language in that moment. But I've heard them many times talk to families through that process. And it is that value statement connecting to the family that your loved one is important to us. It just validates for that family that we're with the right place. They're going to take care of us. And so 100%, it is a value add across the board.
Awesome. Good to hear. And then on other forms of, and Matt brings up a good point, this idea of, again, increasing trust for the family when you can simplify, limit the number of platforms. So if they get used to communication from daily family funeral homes, and then they get a DocuSign, and they're going like they just read in the newspaper about someone trying to scam and off an obit or something like that. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Matt? I mean, as far as families' reaction, how do we help funeral directors have the courage to try something new and to think about it from the family's perspective? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the streamlining, as you mentioned, is really important because people do get confused between multiple things. If they get 3 emails from you and they have one link to upload photos and they have another link to monitor their obituary and another, I mean, it just, I think in their mind, well, I clicked on the thing that you sent me, and why, then I missed something, because of that. So streamlining definitely is important. In terms of getting, staff buy-in and getting people to try things, that's obviously there's growing pains often that come from that. I mean, if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? I mean, I think we have different levels of success, and I think these things often, take time. Change management, has been something traditionally I've struggled with, and I've tried to be better at it. Where, introducing things in advance, explaining why, and setting deadlines of how it is that we're going to do that. I mean, for us, one of the things was our intake. When we bring a decedent into our care, we have a checklist of different things that the director does at that process, and it used to be a paper checklist. and I wanted to move it to the tasks checklist in the mobile app through Psari. So, for people, even getting the checklist when I first did it, it was a hard thing. Like, now you're like a corporation, we have a form for a form, and you're making us do all this stuff. And it's like, no, we're just making sure that we all do what we're supposed to do. And it's good for you too, to make sure that you confirmed the ID bracelet, you added ours on. We made sure we looked for a pacemaker, we inventoried jewelry, we updated our tracker. When it's 2:00 in the morning, you have to do that. Your brain's foggy, and a checklist is there to help you. So, but moving it to the app, people were like, I like the paper. It was always there, in the care center when they come in a certain spot, and they knew where to find it. So I gave them like a 2-month window, and I said, for this 2 months, you could either use the app or you could use the paper. But starting on this day, we're going to move to the paper, and we'll move to the app, I should say. And we're going to know that you did it because it's time and date stamps that you did it. So, so it's enforceable, but, you get that resistance to technological changes and people embracing new things. But if you explain why it's important, Tom told the story. It sounds like they had the all in because they had that nightmare situation where everyone had a collective stomach sinking. And if you could explain what things look like when they go wrong and say, you don't want that and I don't want it, and let's make sure it never happens, and here's how we're going to do it, hopefully it helps improve and grease the process a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Hey, for the 3 people that are watching this podcast, Matt, would you show us your angry face? I was just wondering what it looked like. What non-compliance looks like at Bailey. So thank you.
Now I understand why all of his employees are so eager to get onto their apps. So, all right, hey Gary, you've got a history in technology.
History, all right. Oh,
yeah.
Let's not go there today, Todd.
I would say professional history in. Oh, look at that!
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Go ahead, Mr. Freitag.
Ah, yes.
For those listening to the podcast and not watching, Jimmy and I are donning our Harvard hats because, as you may or may not know, Gary went to Harvard.
Ah, yes. And I remind them all the time. Concomitant with your question, I'm just kidding, guys. What I was thinking about when you were talking about technology is you were talking about the impact on the consumer, the family. It also has a big impact internally, and both Matt and Jimmy were sort of moving in that direction. Because traditionally, you haven't had what I would call a real ERP system to run funeral homes and cemeteries together. You had arrangement software, you had this, but then we had Google Docs and Excel spreadsheets and Post-it notes and checklists. And the more you can consolidate that information in one area where it's usable, you can start getting exception reporting instead of, all right, give me all the decedents in the care center and what their status is now, and I got to look through to make sure everything's fine. If you just get, I want a list of the people that have been in our care for 48 hours that we don't have permission to embalm. Something like that, where you're going to get 1 or 2 names, not 30. I think that is really going to help with the efficiency and with funeral directors managing complexity in putting together customized services, because the more backstops you have in terms of, hey, here's all the stuff, we're still waiting on these 3 items, Mr. Funeral Director or Mrs. Funeral Director. It's a reminder to them rather than having to go back and check every case and make sure everything is in line. So I think the technology internally will really help. We're trying to get to a point where I probably shouldn't use this analogy, but it's the easiest one I can give you, that it's like that coming to Spring Grove is like going to the airport, arrivals, departures. But that information is internal. And so our grounds people have their information, our funeral directors have their information, the care center has its. And it just allows you to share a lot more information rather than running around or trying to track people down with texts and phone calls. Hey, did the Wilson family, whatever. So we're not there yet. It isn't smooth. It isn't seamless. But as Tom said, we come an awful long way in a decade from everything being on paper to the cutting edge firms are doing almost everything digitally. And as Matt pointed out, you can also track who did what when. Yeah. When things go awry, if you're using technology, you've got timestamps or entry points or whatever it is that says, no, that's not what happened. Here's the sequence of events, and here's where we fell down. So I'm really interested. It's one of the primary focuses of Spring Grove right now is to try to take our systems and try to get useful information real time to the frontline employees that are trying to make the magic happen. So we've been working on that for about 18 months. Basari's been helpful, but we've had some internal initiatives that have also helped. And I really think that's going to be the key to the future. And I think I said this in a prior podcast, but if you move forward and you're dealing in a cremation world where the cremation family's expectations are the service is going to be secular and customized to that decedent, that adds complexity. It gives us a competitive advantage over some of our smaller competitors that do not have the resources to be able to invest in that. And there are literally funeral homes in Cincinnati that if you walk in and say, I've got a cremation, or my father's been cremated, I want to do a service, they'll say, go down the street. We don't do those here.
Wow.
They only do Catholic services in the church, literally.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that'll help us going forward. It'll also improve the customer service, right? The less time you spend tracking people down and whatever, the more time you can spend with the family talking about what they want the service to be like. And that's the way I sell it to funeral directors. This is not about replacing you. This is about spending less time filling out forms that have no value to the family or to you. They're just things we have to do. The more you can make that efficient, the more time you can say, well, tell me about Dad. What did he like? What do you think he'd like to see today or at the service? So that's why I think going forward, technology is really going to be increasingly critical to the profession.
Yeah. Thanks, Gary.
What was that ninth point that you were making?
I'm sorry, did I just fill up an entire podcast myself? You guys know I love the sound of my own voice. You ever like this?
Gary, have you ever been in a Turkish prison?
And cut. You like movies about gladiators?
It's the Harvard 10-point plan. Keep
An APA
So
format.
far we're on two.
So Tom, I bet there's more than one listener, not just to the podcast, but more than one listener that's probably asking themselves this question, though, is how have you been able to instill a culture of innovation at French Funerals and Cremations?
Oh, painfully. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
That's
talk
honest.
about change management, and I think both Gary and Matt were teeing it up correctly. It's very hard to get your team in alignment and see the why behind any change. And since we started this so long ago, we went through a lot of the really, really hard times in the 2000s. Now, if I were to pull out the software if I took Passari away, I would have a revolt. But back then, if I would have taken a software off the table, they would have rejoiced. It's sometimes, getting the staff to kind of work through it. However, I want to come back to a point Gary made on something else. With the use of AI in funeral service, you are talking about another game changer for us in time savings. We are all suffering from a shortage of funeral directors. You can't go out and hire funeral directors. At least many of which you find are not that can come and work in your firm, right? And so what we suffer with is with fewer funeral directors, but an increased death demand over the next 20 years as we anticipate this. What do we have to do? Well, we have to be more efficient. And part of that is AI. And again, we cringe as funeral directors. Oh, AI, that's not personal. But I tell you what, if I can take the information in our platform, hit the AI tool and print out an obituary that at least gives a family a starting point and a conversation, I just saved 20 minutes. And if I can save 20 minutes times 2,000 arrangements a year, holy moly, I just covered two full-time folks. And I think that's what we have to really hit on in funeral services. Get out of our own way, use the tools that are there. Yes, be cautious. Don't go open AI all the time, but figure out a way to use that technology to promote time savings.
That's a good point. And then, so let me just ask this question. I'll throw it to you, Matt, on AI and its use in funeral service. So what are your thoughts on making sure that we can, be efficient with AI, but also not lose the effectiveness of personalization?
Yeah, I think this is going to be an ongoing conversation about all aspects of life, right? I mean, we're gonna funeral service and outside of funeral service. I'm sure there are doctors that are having conversations about truly listening to their patient versus having an algorithm that is picking up on rare diseases that they never even thought of, right? And weighing the benefits of that. And I hear a lot of funeral directors who are really uncomfortable and not happy about AI coming into the world because it's a machine. It's numbers in, numbers out. It doesn't have empathy. It doesn't listen. It doesn't know. It doesn't understand. But Tom brought up real facts about how it can save time, streamline things, and assist the human being. And I think that's what we have to focus on, is how it's assisting the human being and keeping the human being in the process and in the room, and just allowing them to be more efficient. Now, that being said, if they click the button and the obit comes out terrible and the person just takes the draft and puts it in front of the family without looking at it, there's the potential for stuff to go wrong there, right? So you still have to have that human involved with it, who looks at it, who takes a sentence out, who moves things around quickly, or explains to the family this is a computer thing. That doesn't make any sense, and be eyes and ears for them as well, because they're still the expert that's in the room. But as it becomes more and more available, our families are going to be using it with or without us, right? So I think, if they're doing it on their own and feeling they're getting a better product, and we see that happening. I mean, we see families walking into funeral homes, offering them print materials that they have been buying or have had in the attic since Grandpa bought it in 1947. And it looks terrible, and they go online themselves on Etsy, and the same woman that does custom print materials for weddings for that family a year ago is now going to do a memorial product at the same price point. If they're going to start making it DIY, we have to make sure that we're involved with that process, knowing what they're getting and making sure that we're the one that personalizes it. AI may come up with a great idea for them about how to have a celebration of life, and they look at the country club as the place to do that. We have to be the one that walks in and says, well, here's how you staff an event like that. Here's how you have to plan and what you have to bring in ahead of time. Here's how you set scene. Here's how you prepare, for the emotional response of your gathering, and make us an essential element to fulfill the act and have it get into place, if that makes any sense or not.
No, it does. Because I think what you're saying, Matt, is the AI can generate ideas, but it doesn't have life experience and how to deliver those with thoughtfulness and meaning.
Exactly. And there's 101 little things that we've had experiences with as a funeral director, if not more, that will not be part of the algorithm. So when someone just says, I'm going to pick up mom's urn and I'm going to go, to the country club, and we're going to just have a dinner and someone's going to talk, the idea about when do they start speaking? Who's going to ask people to sit down? Do you, as the daughter, really want to get on the microphone and start yelling? Like, how do we make these announcements? At what time does the food get involved versus not get involved? Is the urn going to stay there the whole time? Is someone going to bring it in at a certain time? Are we going to incorporate ceremony? Are we going to, they want to do a candle lighting ceremony, but no one ever thought of matches. And also we got Billy with a Bic lighter. I mean, there's all these different things that, funeral directors for such a long time have been the mysterious person behind the curtain pulling strings and not letting families know about the many, many, many details that we take care of for them. And I think we have to be better about letting them know what we've done and what we're going to do. So they realize we didn't just charge them a fee and stood by the door. We were there 90 minutes early, and we set these things up, and we helped set stage, and we brought in equipment. And I think we need to do a better job about educating people of the value of what we bring.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you sound very much like a celebrant, Matt.
Yeah. AI wrote that bit for him before we started.
Yes.
It worked on me. I was starting to bring a tear to my eye.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, so,
Todd, that's a prison tattoo.
I want to bring up a scary article that I saw. Scary depending on how you look at it, but I was looking for something to send to our cemetery board of directors as an educational piece. And I ran across an article online from a group called Inverse. And it was about a South Korean online digital presence platform that is actively being used. And Gary, in your cemetery world, there's a video on this page on Inverse that shows a mother who lost her daughter at a cemetery. She's got her AI goggles on, and her daughter pops up from behind her headstone. And through using cues on her voice, her daughter was speaking to her, and this woman was just sobbing horribly. And so what I think we as a profession also have to be aware of is who owns the digital presence of our loved ones. And that's something that's still kind of forming along the way. And while that sounds intriguing, and watching the video, I went through emotions of, oh, wow, that's cool. Oh my gosh, that's terrifying. And then what happens in the grief process? And what about the aftermath? And there's just a ton of questions. So AI can be a tool to help us with time savings, but it can also be something that is terrifying for those that
a
are
nightmare
ultimately using it.
And that video was one of the worst things I ever saw. I've seen that before. I saw it at a convention years ago. And that was my initial response, like and when I'm kind of hedging my thoughts about AI at the start of the conversation, but part of my initial hell no was from watching that video, where it was terrible. It was just awful. I was like, this poor woman is going to be, oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Bailey
on April Fool's, every day she goes to visit the grave on April Fool's, Jimmy's image comes up, and she has a conversation with Jimmy.
Damn it, Todd! I was going to say Bailey jumps out of all of his on all.
Oh, we all grow in the same place for that. So, well, hey, so we're really close here to wrapping up. We're running out of time here. So, Tom, first of all, I just wanted to thank you for your contributions here today. I know all of us respect you and admire the work that you're doing out there in Albuquerque with your families and your commitment to keeping on the leading edge, and sometimes, as you said, the bleeding edge of technology. And I think you've done a great job just culturally in your funeral homes and cemeteries, making sure that your staff knows that you're leading with heart and that you're trying to lead them to a better place through the use of technology. So I just want to thank you for your courage and your leadership.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you all for having me. And the other thing I'll say is Jimmy promised me one of those bottles of wine. So Jimmy, send that out to me. That'd be fine. And then I need that Harvard hat, Matt. I'm
thankful that we've shared wine together, Tom, and I look forward to the next one, mi hermano.
It's coming soon.
Awesome. Well, hey, I want everyone, if you have a thought or a comment or a reaction to today's program, please communicate with us. The graveyard shift at pasari.com is our email address, and we'd love to hear your comments and your feedback and even ideas for future topics. With that, we're going to sign off, and I want you all to have a great week ahead of you and go make a difference with the family today. And is there a Go Harvard cheer, Gary?
I wouldn't know. I didn't hang out with the riffraff from the undergraduate.
Sing it, Gary. We know you know it.
Is the fight song royalty free to play on the way out? Or...
All right. Thank you all.